Photosynthesis is the process of converting light energy into chemical energy. And this is done by producers, so organisms that can produce their own food. Autotrophs, if you like. The chemical energy is in the form of glucose molecules. Okay, so this video is going to be looking at that process. There's a pigment, I'm going to make it green because that's the colour it is. There's a pigment that's very, very important for photosynthesis, and that's called chlorophyll. It's green, and it's a pigment. So a pigment is a chemical that absorbs light. In eukaryotic cells, the chlorophyll is in an organelle called chloroplasts. Now the chloroplast is a double membrane organelle and looks a bit like this. So you'll see that it has these stacks again of other membranes. Now, each of these stacks is actually called granon, and plural is grana, and each of these discs is called a thylakoid. One more thing, so you'll see these all over the chloroplast, and in these discs is where the chlorophyll is, and the light energy, if I can make that red, the light energy comes in here and gets absorbed by the chlorophyll, which was in these thylakoid discs. Another important part is the almost like a cytoplasm type liquid, and that's called the stroma. So we're going to see there's two different parts to photosynthesis. The first part occurs in the granum, and the second part in the stroma. So like cellular respiration, photosynthesis is a complex series of reactions, and they're controlled by enzymes. So it's very similar to cellular respiration in that way. They talk about, well, I'll show you the overall formula. Whilst it's a very complex reaction with multiple steps, here's the overall formula. So one of the raw ingredients is carbon dioxide, and the other is water. Then the outputs are glucose, oxygen, and also water. So water is an input, water is an output. So if you have a look at the balanced equation for photosynthesis, we've got 6 carbon dioxide plus 12 water. And when we've got C6H12O6, which is of course glucose, plus 6 oxygen plus 6 water. Now, above the line, we're going to say sunlight, because sunlight is one of the inputs, even though it doesn't get used up. And the other thing that's very important, again I'm going to make it green, is chlorophyll. The reaction can't occur without it, but again, it doesn't get used up. Alright, now, so as I mentioned, there's 2 parts to photosynthesis. The first part depends on the light, so we call that the light-dependent reaction. If I might actually just draw... Yeah, I don't think I will. So we've got the 2 parts of the reaction. Firstly, the light-dependent reactions, and then we've got the light, and then we've got the light-independent reactions. Okay, the light-dependent reactions occur in the grana, or granum, if we're talking about the singular. Now, the whole point of this reaction is converting light energy into ATP for the second part of the reaction. Okay, so basically, light energy, what it does is it excites electrons. Now, those excited electrons produce ATP. So, excited electrons have lots of energy and they can do work. They produce 18 ATP. We'll say 18 ATP molecules. And they also split water. Now, so we're splitting water, and obviously water is H2O, so the oxygen then gets released, and that, of course, is what produces the oxygen in our atmosphere. So the oxygen gets released, and what's left is the hydrogen, and that hydrogen goes across to the light-independent reactions. So light-dependent, it excites electrons and it splits water. The ATP is also used in the light-independent reactions as well. So the light-dependent reactions, it excites electrons to produce ATP and splits water. Okay? And then the light-independent reactions, well, that actually occurs in that cytoplasm type stuff called the stroma. It doesn't need light. And in the light-independent reactions, we take carbon dioxide in from the atmosphere, and the whole job of it is to fix carbon. That means taking carbon out of the atmosphere and fixing it or combining it and to produce organic material. So we're fixing carbon to make glucose. But to make glucose, glucose is C6H12O6. And we're fixing carbon from carbon dioxide. So one of the inputs of the light-independent reaction is carbon dioxide, which comes in through the leaves from the atmosphere. So carbon dioxide, we've got carbon and we've got oxygen. But we also need hydrogen. And that hydrogen comes from the light-independent reactions. So we fix carbon by putting together the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen to form glucose. And the last part here is that we also produce some waste water. Wastewater, H2O, is released. Okay, so if we look at the overall reaction again, the initial water input that's required for splitting water, the oxygen is, I guess it's waste, or it's released, and the hydrogens are used to make glucose. Of course, we've got two other inputs: sunlight, which is the energy required to excite the electrons. The chlorophyll is the pigment that absorbs the energy from the sun. And of course, the other input is carbon dioxide, and that's an input required for the light-independent reactions to make glucose. So that's why we've got one output is glucose, Oxygen is released, and then also we've got water as well gets released. So that is photosynthesis. The light-dependent reactions, exciting electrons, produce ATP and split water. Light-independent reactions fix carbon. Take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, fix it with hydrogen to produce glucose. And that's it.